Hello, welcome to those who are joining today. I have the pleasure of speaking to Dr. John Kennedy, who is the Medical Director at Therapie Fertility Clinic in Ireland, who I've had the pleasure of meeting in person when I went to visit their beautiful clinic just before Christmas last year. And the latest tech and things to know in Ireland, especially with therapy fertility. So he should be joining any second now. Hello, Dr. John.
Hey, how are you?
Yes, I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Listen, thanks for doing this. It's fantastic.
Absolutely, absolutely. So first of all, please could you introduce yourself, tell us a bit about your role at Therapy
Oh,
Fertility,
okay.
and a bit of background about the clinic, and then we'll talk about care and treatment in Ireland.
Stuff. Yeah. Hello everybody. My name is Dr. John Kennedy. I'm the medical director of Therapy Fertility. We're an IVF and fertility clinic located in Dublin, in Ireland, with satellites in Dundalk and Galway and Limerick. More to follow, I hope. We've been open about, since 2021. We did our first cases. And so we celebrated our second birthday there a while back. We started the clinic with the aim, and we're going to talk a lot about this, of making fertility treatment
Yep.
accessible, affordable, transparent, process-driven, all these other good things. So far, I'd like to think we've absolutely succeeded in that. Last year, we did, I think, just over 1,200 egg collections, which
Wow.
for a new IVF clinic is really a colossal number. And we've been able to do that coherently and maintain success rates by just trying to structure the processes and modernize things a little bit, you know.
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating because, as we're
Oh yeah.
about to talk about, I've been to visit your clinic in Dublin and had a great experience looking around, meeting the lovely team
Thank
and
you.
beautiful, beautiful premises. And I obviously let's talk about it, but I'd love to hear how you can make care accessible for so many people and affordable, and really going hand in hand with what you said, these great success rates off the back of that, because so many places or so many patients get confused when it comes to sort of add-ons and different methods of treatment, etc. So it would be really good to, first of all, I guess, understand a bit more about the IVF landscape generally in Ireland
Yeah.
when it comes to laws, costs, processes, etc. And then we can talk a bit about how therapy fertility is leading the way in terms of innovative care in 2024.
Yeah, we'll go all day. So it's funny. There was one of our members of Parliament, RT, what we call TD, but MP, I suppose, if it was from the UK equivalent, who said recently that the fertility landscape in Ireland was a wild west, and nothing could be really further from the truth in practical terms. What we don't have is an oversight authority like you'd have in the UK, the HFEA or something like that. We're
Yeah.
going to get one. It might happen either this year or next year. It's been in the works for a while. But honestly, I don't think that's going to change a lot of clinics' processes that much. We are still covered under the EU legislation for the lab stuff and the lab monitoring and checks and balances in that space. We're still a licensed, accredited fertility clinic, and we undergo inspections like everybody else does to make sure that our processes are correct. What we don't have is a national governing authority that says you can only do IVF on somebody between this age and that age. You can only do IVF on somebody with this BMI or that BMI. You can only put one embryo back at a time or two embryos back at a time. You can't put it. We don't have any of that now. So in that regard, the clinics have all been very much self-regulating. And to be honest, they've conformed. We all have conformed pretty much to international first world norms.
Yep.
Pretty much. Nobody's going off the reservation. So when we do introduce legislation, I don't think it's actually going to fundamentally change somebody's practice at all. I am twitchy about the notion of telling somebody they can and can't do something because they're too old or too young. Too young, I understand. But once you reach the age of medical consent, certainly, it's not our job to tell people they can't do fertility treatment. It's much more, and this is critical, our job to be really transparent about the challenges that come with advanced maternal age or advanced age of women going through cycles, and how that success rate might be affected by that. So our job is to tell people what we think the chances are, and then to make sure they understand what that means in practice. You know, if I tell somebody you've got a 50% chance of success, is that 50% chance of a pregnancy test, a
Yeah.
miscarriage, a live birth? What does that actually mean? If I tell somebody they have a 1% chance of success, do they really understand that means they need to do this 100 times to get success? Because that's a tough conversation. It's a conversation that people are sometimes a little bit reluctant to have. I
Yeah.
don't think that's helpful. So I think that's our role. Our role is to inform, to educate, to counsel, and then I love that concept of informed consent. What does that actually mean? It means that we've done an information dump onto you, you've had a chance to process all that information, and then ultimately, really, whatever you do with that information is the right decision for you, as opposed to some body who doesn't know your personal circumstances, who hasn't looked at you as a bespoke human being telling you, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. But I do appreciate the need for regulation. I do appreciate that without it, you can have people who go off the reservation, who target vulnerable people, that leaves people ripe and open to exploitation. But I would like to think that that is not what we are doing.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that summary. If anyone has any questions for Dr. John as we are speaking, please do feel free to put them in the comments and we will get to them for sure. Um, Therapy Fertility. You mentioned, 2021, leading the pack in 2024, so 3 years on. When it comes to IVF in Ireland, what does your clinic offer as standard and gold practice care?
I love that. So one of the things we decided when we started was that we were going to, the less you do, the better you are at it. I mean, and certainly in my career, back before I was this, I was labour ward management and I was a mental access surgeon. I had passions in a couple of different areas. And the challenge with that, of course, is that you become a jack of all trades and master
Yeah.
of none. And the tighter your focus, the better off you are delivering within that rule set. That's definitely true. And that's true not just for people who might be doing a bit of IVF and a bit of this and a bit of that, but especially true for people in the IVF sector. So we decided, here's what we're going to do, and very deliberately, here's what we're not going to do. So what we're offering is intrauterine insemination, IVF, ICSI, fertility preservation with egg freezing and sperm freezing, surgical sperm retrievals, reciprocal IVF, and treatment with donor sperm. So that's a pretty broad range, but it really is notable by its absence. What are we not doing? We're not doing egg donation, we're not doing surrogacy, and we're not doing genetic screening of embryos. And these are services which are absolutely vital for a certain cohort of patients. And we absolutely understand that. And if you're in that box or in that situation where this is something you need, we'll tell you that. And we'll also give you a steer on where to go with it, to be honest, as well. But if you do need genetic screening, I want you to go to a clinic that does that all the time, that has geneticists on staff, that has proper processes and procedures and excellent success rates in that space. Same with egg donation, same with surrogacy. These are extraordinarily challenging things to do. And if I try to bring them in here, I'm just going to complicate everything. And the concern, the fear is that I'll make what we do at the core worse. And that's not allowed. You can't do that. And that also goes for within the framework of IVF and ICSI. You mentioned the term earlier. We can talk all day about this. Add-ons. What are they? What are they for? What are they worth? Are they worthwhile? And the HFEA have their traffic light system for add-ons in fertility clinics. And pretty much they're all still, there's no green, still nothing done green on that one. It's all red or orange. Some of the add-ons, maybe they're asking the wrong question or less. But what happens is somebody goes through a cycle or they have a history and they get told, this is the cycle. We can do this. We can add this thing on. And then generally the conversation goes something like, we can't be sure that this will help. Okay? The evidence isn't convincing. There are bodies which say that it's not worthwhile. However, we can understand how theoretically it will be of benefit, and we understand how you want to say you've left it all out there and you've done everything you can. So here's the product, take it or leave it. We're not really going to take any responsibility for the success of it. We're just going to slowly slide it across the table at you. And good luck having the bravery to say no. That's not going to happen. So patients feel compelled, because of the situation they're in, to undertake these add-ons. all right, which don't have proven value. So
Yeah.
what you can't do here is pay more for a better, in inverted commas, standard of care. We don't offer add-ons. There's things we do which would be regarded in some centres as add-ons, such as growing the embryos out for 5 days instead of doing a transfer in 3 days. That's called blast-assisted
Mm-hmm.
culture.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's considered an add-on in a lot of centres is time-lapse imaging. So instead of
Yep.
leaving the embryos in a big box incubator where you take them out every day and you put them under a microscope, you can put the embryos in what's called time-lapse incubator. These are very cool. They take photos of the embryo every 10, 15 minutes. You build up a video feed. Now, the evidence of benefit with that is not compelling. It's not there yet. It should be. We understand how theoretically it should be of benefit, but we can't prove that. But everybody, all our patients go into embryoscope, go into time-lapse imaging. It's not a choice. It's not something you pay more for or not. It serves us well because it allows us a more efficient dynamic process flow. It serves the embryos better because it's definitely not worse and it's probably better, and it gives you a bit more information, and it's a platform for learning as well. So there's huge advantages for us, but we're not offering it as an add-on. It's something actually, I spent years talking about the relative benefits of embryoscope and all. I don't talk, now that I'm doing it all the time, I don't talk about it anymore. It's just built in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Equally,
So it's part of the treatment plan.
exactly. So if you need to freeze embryos, freezing embryos is a ridiculously common part of fertility. That's built into the cost as well. We're not going to hit you up saying, look, we've frozen embryos, there's a cost to freezing this. Sorry,
Right.
you want to freeze them or not? It's built in. So
Yeah.
while you can't ever be absolute about it will definitely cost this and not one penny more, there are changing circumstances if you have to change cycles around a little bit during them. We do try to be as transparent as possible. And people will come to me, and we had this a lot, and start going, listen, I've had this cycle, and then I read this, or I heard this, or I spoke to this person, they said do this, this, and this. And you're kind of batting stuff back a lot and saying, no, we don't offer that. I'm not going to do receptivity testing. I'm not going to do natural killer cell testing because I don't think it adds value. I don't think it increases your chance of having a baby. And if it doesn't increase your chance of having a baby, then why the hell are we doing it? It has to. That's literally the reason we're all here. And I thought when we started that I would lose a lot of patients. The patients would go, well, look, best of luck. Not for us, and that's fine. We have that disconnect. But what I found, not all the time, but well over 90% of the time, when patients come and they ask, hey, listen, should I do this, this, and this? You can't just dismiss them. You have to have a real conversation with them. You've got to bring them on board and bring them on the journey that you've gone on, and come to this is and get them to understand we're not offering this. We're not offering this because we don't want you to have success. These are the reasons. And what you'll find is if you treat people like they're human beings and you talk to them and you explain things to them, that for the most part at the end they'll go, oh no, that's absolutely fine, thanks. And I really thought we'd get a lot more pushback than we've actually gotten. And I think it speaks to the lack of clarity or the woolliness that has infected a lot of not just modern medicine, but especially fertility treatment, And it's so much easier when somebody says, should I go on the supplement? Just go, sure, yeah, why not? Won't do any harm, might do some good. But the cost of that isn't just the small financial cost of taking the supplement. The cost is you're tacitly telling that patient two things. One, that there's something wrong with them that needs this treatment. And two, that if they don't come up with the good ideas to make their cycle successful, nobody else will. And that's incredibly dangerous. And it puts them in a really difficult position. It puts them in a very vulnerable position. And it's not helpful. So when somebody asks, should I go on this supplement? You need to explain why we haven't routinely suggested this supplement to you because of this evidence and this paper and these live birth rates. And if we thought it was going to be a benefit for you, let's be honest, we probably would have suggested it already. Now, I don't claim to know everything. I really don't. I don't set myself up as being the arbiter. What we are doing is we're following the best available international evidence. It's out there. I don't need to be the research genius. Somebody else is out there doing that. What I do need to do is be very careful about bringing stuff to a commercial marketplace before it's been proven to be effective.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's worse.
Well, it's really good to hear about that. And I also want to know, because I've witnessed things myself being in your incredible lab, and also the sort of green effect you have on the fertility space and a leading clinic in that respect. Tell us about these advancements and developments and tech that you have brought to the table this year and onwards.
So I think like the where IVF has gotten really good in the last decade or so is in terms of time lapse incubation and how we
Yep.
manage and process embryos. I think we've got really, really good at freezing and thawing eggs, sperm, and embryo way better than we used to be. And I think they're the two biggest advancements that are out there. It was funny. I got asked a question recently. One of our lab members was doing a talk, and she said, "What she was asked the question, what did she think some of the biggest challenges are to fertility clinics going forward?" And I thought about it for a while, and the answer I've come up with, and I'm still thinking about it, and the answer I've come up with, I think I'm right, but I also think it's terrible. Because I think one of the challenges that we have is actually innovation.
Right.
New products, new technologies that come into a laboratory are coming in without, in many cases, in some cases, the level of due diligence. And when you saw our lab was built to do 5 or 6 things, and it does those 5 or 6 things incredibly well. And you can scale up and down the activity, provided you don't start doing more things. If we suddenly turned around and started doing day 3 transfers, we're not going to, but let's say we did, that would massively upset the flow of that environment. And you should not be careless about the impact that will have on your success rates, because it will have a negative impact on your success rates. So think about that every time you bring a new product or a new step into the lab. Like something like, good example is I think something like embryo glue, which may be of
Yep.
benefit in certain patients. But once you're now you've bifurcated your patient population. Again, from IVF takes you, some of them are doing embryo glue, some of them aren't. So now your process flow for how you take an embryo and move it from this dish to this dish to this dish is different for some people than it is for other people. And it shouldn't be. It should be stratified. It should be the same. So while you might help an edge case, you might actually wind up damaging somebody else who maybe wasn't going to get that much benefit from embryo glue anyway, as well as damaging the person who wasn't using embryo glue at all, because now everything on their side is delayed by 5 or 10 minutes. And minutes matter. I'm, I'm a little AD PhD kid at heart. I'm obsessed with the notion of efficiencies and optimizations and process flows. And the best, how do you make a cup of tea? Where is your mug? Where's your kettle? Where's your tea bag? Where's your milk? Where's your spoon? And what happens to all that afterwards? And how do you fold a t-shirt? All this stuff, you can apply this to literally any area in your life. But for something as time sensitive as managing eggs and sperm and embryos, it becomes incredibly critical. I'm very fortunate in that our lab manager is also a little ADD kid at heart, so Carol's obsessed with this as I am. And
Yes.
there's a reluctance when you can prove that your concept works, and we have done that with the success rates. You need to be really careful about changing that. Really
Yeah,
careful.
yeah, of course. Of course. But also you have a very advanced filter system, air filter system, don't you, as
Oh yeah,
well?
of course. Yes. Oh my God, it was hilarious because I was involved in the inception of the lab. So this is my head is filled with HEPA filter information and what a clean room is. Of course, this is information I don't want. This is information I don't need. And possibly I will forget the names of my children, but still remember what a great C lab looks like down the line. And it came from starting this up in we started in COVID, and we had the opportunity to build something to a high spec and a high standard. We're lucky where we are. We're out in South County Dublin. We're not in an industrial complex. The air is, I mean, what when I was a child, this is obviously just a suburb now, but it would have been referred to as the countryside back then. It's mainly residential. So you've got actually that matters. You've got a lot of clean air coming in the environment, and then it helps that you've got carbon filters, you've got HEPA filters, you've got a great C lab,
Yeah.
and all. Yeah, and then you've got people who are very OCD about not bringing what are called VOCs, volatile oxidative compounds, into the laboratory. No perfumes and masking up and gowning up appropriately when you're in the lab environment.
Absolutely. We've had a lot of questions come your way. Um, I would urge people to please DM Therapy Fertility after we finish this live to get your questions answered, and to book to speak to Dr. John for personalised care. But one in particular that just came through, which is something I have to ask you about because I did travel over to come and see you and speak to you and film at the clinic, which was a fantastic experience. What would you say to people who are considering coming over from England to Ireland for treatment?
So we're getting better at it, and
Wow.
we started off in a good place, I think. It was funny because for years I've been doing IVF since 2013, and Ireland was a massive net exporter of IVF cycles. I think 30 to 40% of all IVF undertaken by Irish people was undertaken in clinics abroad. Well, I think that speaks massively. That's an issue. You've got some things to think about if that's your landscape. We have become a net importer. Certainly, this clinic has become a net importer of cycles. That we have people coming from the UK and coming from north of Ireland. Advantages are we have the satellite in Dundalk, and you've got Amy up there, and it's fantastic. You get all your blood and your scans and whatnot done there. You just come into Carrickmines for egg retrievals and embryo transfers, and maybe Hycosi, although you can get that locally. We can take tests that you've done locally and accept them. That's not a problem. There's some tests that have to be done here, viral screening, HIV and hepatitis, but that's relatively straightforward. And we've got better at managing the logistics and the prescriptions and the outlines, and we've got very, very good at that. What we don't have, and it is a factor for some patients coming from the UK and coming from Northern Ireland especially, is BMI limits.
Right.
And I think something that's interesting that's happened in the UK is that a lot of the there's public funding for fertility treatment in Ireland now for the first time this year. Happened for the first time, or last year, late last year. And that's great, but it has BMI restrictions, really quite strict BMI restrictions. And I can understand why they've put them in there. There's an available pot of money and it needs to be disseminated, and you want to get the most bang for your buck, etc., etc. And that's how the trusts have been operating for years, with various different numbers depending on the amount of money put in. But an interesting thing kind of happened because a lot of the private IVF that's done in the UK is done in NHS adjacent centres. So it's not appropriate for Professor Smith to refuse you in this room, but then open up the door down the corridor and take you in there, right?
Yeah.
And I can understand how that happened, but the outcome of that is that these patients can't have care.
Mm.
And a lot of these patients don't have time, and also, look, they've struggled with their weight their whole life. It's not like you've opened, the scales have dropped from their eyes, and you've given them something revelatory by saying, do you know what, your BMI is an issue. They know that. They've known that forever. That's not news. They've struggled with this forever. Yeah. And a lot of them are of an age where the seesaw effect is very real. They're losing eggs. They're losing opportunity. They're losing time faster than they can shake weight. And anybody who's tried to lose weight knows that if there's only one thing and one thing that is true, it is there is no such thing as a rate of weight loss that is too slow. But there are many times when a rate of weight loss is too fast and just rebounds back up. So telling somebody, weaponizing somebody's weight against them and saying, well, your BMI is 33, so you need to lose 10 kilos. I need to lose 10 kilos by, 4 o'clock. How is that going to help them? What the hell is the solution there? And then offering nothing in terms of work. By all means, take them out of that room and show them into the other room, which is the dietitian, which has the meal planner, which has the endocrinologist giving them Ozempic or what have you, really working with them hardcore. But there's none of that. It's just go away and lose and then come back to me. So we don't have BMI limits here, and as you can hear from my conversation, there's philosophical reasons for that. We do have very frank and honest conversations about the challenges that high BMI can bring to the table in terms of access to the ovaries, response to sedation, response to medications, the impact it can have on success rates, although I don't think that's as big as everybody says. I think that gets overstated. We have some data to back this up now. So we don't have, and I think that's been a driver for some people coming over. But what I really like to see is we've been around long enough that there's enough people out there. What feeds fertility clinics? Babies. Babies feed fertility clinics. If you have a baby, if you attend a clinic and you have a baby, you tell, not everybody tells everybody, but most people tell everybody, and you share that story.
Yeah.
And if I have 50 people in a row, hey, listen, what brought you in there? About 40 of them are going to say, I know somebody who knows somebody, or I know somebody who came here. I heard. It's word of mouth. This is tremendously word of mouth driven. I do think being savvy and doing social media is very, very relevant, but I can't speak strongly enough to the value of a good personal experience. Yeah, the good experience. Positive, I come more negative out, but a good experience with the doctor or with the nurses here. And that's what makes me really happy, because we've only been around 2 years and we're doing well. And that means that so long as we aren't absolutely awful, that's going to grow, because that reputation within the field, I would like to think will grow and grow well.
How do you maintain such high success rates and keep costs affordable as well?
So the success rates, I think, speak ultimately to the simple, process-driven, looking at the evidence, doing simple things well. I'd love to say the success rates are down to how brilliant myself and Dr. McGatt are at egg collections and embryo transfers. That'd be great. You know, I'm probably going to say it anyway, but it's also not true. It's the lab. It's the lab. It's the lab. It's the lab. It's careful management of egg, sperm, and embryos. That's what brings success in this field. Having good, streamlined processes definitely helps. As to the cost, yeah, that's the same thing. What we try to do, everybody, not everybody, most entrants who've come into the market have looked, even ones who came from abroad in Ireland, I think this happened in the UK as well, came into the marketplace and said, what will this support? Not what does this cost me to do, but what can I charge for it?
Mm-hmm.
What will people pay? And that's modern capitalism, and I understand that. We came in and we started at the start and said, listen, what is this costing us to do? Then sticking a margin on, because we've got to keep the lights on, we've got to pay the staff, and it does have to be profitable. This is still private healthcare. But how profitable? What margin are you willing to work on? How efficient can you be in your use of time? One of the things that is incredibly telling, one of the reasons we're able to keep costs down, is the efficiency of managing the doctor's time, because we're expensive. We just are. Can't get away from it. So in a previous incarnation, I would have spent an hour talking to a patient, organized tests, and then spent another half an hour talking to that patient, and then they go potentially into a cycle, right? Mm-hmm. So that is 90 minutes to get them into a cycle. We've changed the process here, and now your initial consultation is with a nurse who is absolutely as capable of giving you information on IVF and ICSI as I am. Absolutely, and is very frequently kinder, and will devote time to you, and will then break down what we do, how we do it. Again, we're not doing donor egg, we're not doing surrogacy, so there's a lot of stuff they don't need to talk about there. It might be relevant, but that's not what we do. Then that nurse will organize testing based on an algorithm and can liaise on a case-by-case basis. And then they come and they see me or they see Dr. McGatt. And that consult is half an hour. And I still get surprised at this because I run through their history, we go through all the test results that we have now. They are completely ready. They are sorted at that point. And then you might ask an open question like, what were you hoping to do? And the amount of time they just kind of look at me, kind of quizzically going, IVF, obviously. Didn't we already know that? You know, aren't we all on the same page? And it really is gratifying to see that, that they're coming in, they are informed. Medical consults are terrible bloody things. They're limited time, far too much information gets thrown at you. You get one important fact at the start and everything else is just white noise. A blur. So minimizing that, giving them the information, but then presenting that information to them in an understandable form. You write down their chances of success, you write down the consult, you give that to them straight away. Your consents are online. There's a video of me with or on about IVF for 20 minutes, so they can watch that in their own time, rewatch it in their own time, educate them. Some people don't, but it's all there. That frees my time up. That means I can deliver more cycles. So in the past, a standard IVF doctor would have probably looked after about maximally 250, really to push 300 cycles a year was what our all-time goal was. We're doing 600. And that's good. But we're not compromising care. The success rates speak for themselves. What we're doing is we're being efficient. We're being efficient about the resources. What do you want your doctor doing? You want them there for the unfortunate edge cases who need time. After that, one of the things I often contend with is people saying, I don't want to be treated like a number, I want to be treated like a human being. I do think you should have individualized, personalized care. But I also think you should go on a conveyor belt. That's what I want you to do. I want to get you on the right conveyor belt because that conveyor belt is giving out babies at the end. You know, that's really good. That's a good conveyor belt to be on. So doing that stuff at the front end, working out what the right process is, and then kind of rejudging that on a case-by-case basis as you go through. You need those touch points. But you should never be scared of, it's not one size fits all, but you should never be scared of an organization that is success-focused and you being part of that journey. You know, I haven't quite been able to square the circle in terms of getting that message across in a very, very friendly fashion. But it's definitely true. There's no question about that. So, and that enables us to do it in a more affordable fashion. And we're passing that on to the patients. So.
I would love to also ask you, just conscious of your time, how about reciprocal IVF, because I know you do a lot of that at the clinic.
So first of all, what is reciprocal IVF? Reciprocal IVF is a same-sex couple who are coming through for treatment, where in principle, one person is going to undergo stimulation medication treatment, their eggs are going to be retrieved, donor sperm is going to be used to make embryos, and then one of those embryos is going to be transferred into the other party. It's slightly more than that. What we're doing essentially is we're taking eggs from one party, and we're making embryos, we're going to freeze those embryos, and those embryos are owned by that couple jointly and can be distributed between that couple however they want. It's a lovely, elegant thing that an awful lot of same-sex couples want to do. It's very popular. Yeah, I mean, it's a complete no-brainer. So for those, and it's something where sometimes a couple will know absolutely they're coming in with a very, very clear idea of, no, I want to carry and I want to do this and then the other. And then ask me again in a year or two. You know, things change, especially if you're young. And I love that openness and that flexibility you have, that the embryos are made for you as a couple and they're owned by you as a couple and can be used interchangeably.
Do you find that sometimes the same-sex couple come in and they have an idea of who might harvest the eggs and who might carry, and then it ends up changing based
Oh,
on
very much so.
tests
Very much
and
so. So you always try to
results?
have those conversations, and you're looking at their age and their history, and you love people to be open. And what we generally recommend is testing for both parties at the start, within reason, and, you know, so long as it's age appropriate and things like that. And that allows you to make the best decision, or give them the best information for them to make the best decision for them. So we do very much recommend that, and sometimes you would see things change. And paradoxically, sometimes you would see things change almost like if you have a couple and one of them is 38 and the other is 34. The obvious thing is go, okay, well, we're going to harvest the 34-year-old's eggs because, you know, that's the one that's going to be most successful, the lowest miscarriage rate, highest success rate. But that's a little careless. What you need to do is talk to the 38-year-old, go, is it important to you as an individual or as part of this couple that at some point your genetic material may be used to make embryos for your family? Because if the answer to that question is yes, then maybe we're best off focusing on you at the first time, because we've got a bit more time over there. So it doesn't always go the way you think it's going to.
Absolutely.
But it's just about breaking it all down in a clear, comprehensible fashion. These are the chances if we do X, Y, or Z, and then they take that information, do with what they will.
Someone commented earlier saying that you're the best doctor they've ever met, so that's lovely. Also, fertility preservation. I know you do that in Ireland as well.
Oh, I've been logged out. Am I here?
Yeah, you're here. You're here. Can everyone still see me? I think he's logging back in. This is such a good conversation. I hope people are getting their questions answered and could just wait for a second as he logs back in. Hi to those who are joining. We are just talking about IVF success rates, affordable care, and latest tech developments at Therapie Fertility, a leading Irish clinic. Hello, thank you for saying that I'm still here. That's good. Let's see whether he's back to join. I'm not sure what's happened. It's been so insightful speaking to Dr. John. Just going to invite him back in now. If it doesn't work, please do DM us any questions you have for Dr. John, and we will get those answered for you, and also to speak to Therapie Fertility independently. They would be more than happy to discuss personalised care, and let's see, oh, he might be here now. We were nearly there. Okay. You're back.
Disaster introverted. I'm so sorry I don't know, but obviously
Don't
the
worry,
standard
don't
thing,
worry
I
at
don't know
all.
what happened there. Yeah.
I was just saying it's been so fantastic and insightful speaking to you, and we're sort of nearly concluding what we were going to discuss tonight.
Well,
But I just wanted to find out first of all about fertility preservation and
fertility
therapy
preservation.
fertility.
Yep. So let me go into that. So we've got egg freezing and sperm freezing. Egg freezing or sperm freezing, if you're going to have a vasectomy or you're going to have oncology treatment or you're worried about sperm or you're on steroids, you've come off them and you're looking to go back on them, lots of reasons I think more people should consider it. But it's a growing area. It's very easy to freeze sperm. It's very easy to get a sperm sample and freeze sperm. It's a man's world. When you're talking about fertility preservation, a lot of the time you're talking about egg freezing. The term is awful bloody term, social egg freezing. It's not social, it's medically directed sometimes. This is for women who know they don't want to have children now, who might not even know if they want to have children in the future, perfectly reasonably. And so every month you're throwing away hundreds of thousands of eggs, so you try to capture some of them, hold them in time so that if you run into problems later on, you have a plan B. The testing, we're trying to make it affordable, trying to make it accessible. The two critical questions, there are always two questions that you have to ask and answer if somebody's contemplating egg freezing. The first question is how many eggs you think you're going to get. And that varies from person to person, depending a lot on their test results, their blood test and AMH, their scan, their antral follicle count. So we do both of those things in advance of it to try to give them a flavour of what we think we'll get per cycle. We don't always get it right. Sometimes it's more, rarely it's less, but sometimes it can be. So we always try. And then the second question is, are they any good? And that's much harder to answer because you test an egg by turning it into an embryo and turning that embryo into a person.
Yeah.
If that embryo
Yeah.
turns into a person, it was a good egg. Genius.
Yeah.
So we don't have that information. So you have to look at their history. Are there any factors which might influence their egg quality, like endometriosis or something like that? But mainly you're talking about their age. And people are always thrown back on their heels a little bit by these numbers. But optimally, an optimal egg probably has about a 3.5% chance of turning into a baby, which is a shockingly low number. But that means if you've got 10 eggs frozen, you've got a 35% chance of having a baby. You've got 20, you've got 70% chance. So it's okay. But maybe if you're 40 years old, that number is 1%. So now if you've got 20 eggs frozen, you only have a 20% chance of a baby.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do before you ever embark on egg freezing is predict what one cycle is going to give you within reason, within a bandwidth. And then because a lot of people will need more than one cycle, but are you somebody for whom egg freezing is a good idea or a bad idea? Are you young or you old? Should we be focusing here or there? So we try to do all that. Also, because we know that a lot of people will need more than one round of egg freezing to get to a decent cumulative live birth rate, second cycles are a bit cheaper. We don't charge more as we add eggs to the freezing pool. The storage fee stays the same.
Yeah.
And some of the testing doesn't need to be, most of the testing doesn't need to be repeated. We can get people straight back into cycle. So we do try to kind of share that with the patient. Go, look, we think you're going to need more than one. So this is what we've done to try to make that a bit more achievable or attainable for you. We have an awful lot of people attending here for egg freezing. I'm really, really happy about that. I think it's a really positive thing. I think fertility education should go hand, I'm biased, but it should go hand in hand with sex education. In Ireland, we're taught that you'll get pregnant with
We're
Pegasus
taught
trousers
how
at the end
to,
of the bed.
and how to not get pregnant. Yeah, absolutely. We've had quite a few people actually on this theme asking about sort of success rates and options for IVF over 40. What would you say to people who come to you where they haven't frozen eggs and they're embarking for the first time into the 40s?
So you look at the data first. Do they have history of infertility or subfertility? Then you look at their ovarian reserve. You look at their AMH. You look at their antral follicle count. You look at the sperm. You see are there any other reasons? Do they have a history of miscarriage? And of course, success rates are going to be lower in that age group. They just are. A cumulative live birth rate, it won't be 50 to 60%. It might be 20 to 30%. And it might drop faster. And you present people with some awful facts in these consults. Really, really terrible, hard-hitting, brutal facts about pregnancy loss rates as people go into their 40s and how quickly and terribly these numbers rise. After that, it's up to them what they do with that. Certainly, I've been accused of being direct. Candid, I think. Thank you for your candor, John, which is one of those compliments. Sounds like a compliment, but actually, but I do think it speaks to just being very, the purpose of the consultation is to give you the information. It's not there to make you feel good and warm and fuzzy necessarily.
Yeah.
You elect to embark on a cycle, find me a different character. It's all hands to the pump. It's completely success focused. But really, it's critical that you understand what the challenges, what the limitations of what we can do are. Fertility journeys should end in one of two ways. They should end with people either achieving their family, completing their family, or they should end with a person having done everything that they are comfortable doing so they can walk off the park. And that comes with grief and that comes with pain, no question. But also, ultimately, it maybe comes with a sense of closure, not the day after you get a negative result, but in the fullness of time and all the rest. You can say you left it all out there. You can say you tried. I think there's value in that, but at the same time, I'm not going to hop into somebody for thousands of euro just for that. You know, there needs to be tangible benefits to this.
Yeah, of
So you
course.
have you absolutely have these conversations. I think the older woman going through IVF is very vulnerable to do this, take this medication, take this supplement, do this, do that, do the other. There's not a whole lot of evidence behind any of it. You just need to see, can you get good eggs? Can you make good embryos? If you can, you've got an honest to God shot. If you can't, you don't. You know?
Okay, brilliant. And lastly, to leave people with, we have had absolutely tons of questions, so please do DM Therapy Fertility, DM Therapy Fertility directly or ourselves. We can put you in
Yeah.
touch. Book in for a free consult.
That
You
as
can
well.
follow the link in our bio, which is an amazing opportunity to speak to the team. But I wanted to ask, for those interested in exploring treatment with yourselves, traveling from the UK or further afield, how do they get the ball rolling?
So best thing you can do, especially if you're coming from further afield, is get online, book a consult. Okay? The consult, you're coming from the land of far, far away. So don't come across here. You can if you want, but book it online. Do it through Teams. We'll send you a link. They'll go through everything with you. And then what you can do is you can maybe get the ball rolling on some testing done locally. Then what you can do is you can come over here and you can get a more comprehensive, something like a womb assessment, a HICOSI or an SIS, and a semen analysis and all the rest, and a medical review all done the same day. And if all that's going well, we have all of your information at that point, because those tests are point of care tests where we get the result instantaneously. We can put it all together, and then if you want to progress to treatment, we can even do your viral screens done that day. So the next time you're back is actually when you're deep into your cycle.
Great.
So it can be done incredibly efficiently, you know?
Yeah.
And we have people traveling back and forth for transfers and the like. And I mean, I was over in Manchester a couple of months back. It's not far. The hardest part is getting to the Shaggin Airport. You know,
Well, I came and
nothing.
visited you
Yeah.
from London, and it was just one easy flight, and I came and went back again the same day. It was super simple.
So it is very much saying, come back again the same day for an awful lot of people. So it is achievable. It can be done. It is probably, and look, this is something that the clinics in the UK have to look at. I want to lead the charge in this. I want to force change across this whole sector. But it's up to them to play catch up with us. And if they are losing patients who are coming to Ireland because it is more accessible, it is more affordable, it's less restricted, and it doesn't compromise in any way, shape, or form your chance of having a baby, well, it's up to them to step up and compete. You know, but please have a chat. Cost you nothing. You know, at least get a second pair of eyes on.
Absolutely.
You know?
I couldn't agree more. So please, everyone, do head to our link in bio to book a free consult with the team, who are obviously more than happy to support and help you any way they can. And feel free to DM too, but the link is in our bio. So thank you, Dr. John. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you again, as it was meeting you back in November. And thank you to everyone who's joining. And it's been super helpful.
Super. Listen, thank you so much for this, and please reach out questions, pass them on. We do Instagram Lives where we just bang through questions all the time. This communication, this getting the message out there, it's such a core part of what we want.
Absolutely.
You know. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Of course, it was a pleasure. Speak to you soon. Thanks,
Take care.
everyone. Bye-bye. Bye.